Yeah, this is the teacher of this season, Tara,
Hi.
right? Yeah. So your full name, Tara, do you want to give your middle name?
Lee.
Lee?
Tara Lee.
Tara Lee?
Yeah.
All right.
Like bakery, Sarah Lee, only it's Tara Lee.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. And I'm Jake, and so we're going to do a little bit of interview and talking. And yeah, so thank you for your time.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, thank you.
'Cause, I mean, like, what were you, today's a pretty windy day, called it a poo day?
Yeah, it's a poo day outside.
Yeah, yeah. Can you define that? What's a poo day for you?
It's a blustery day.
Blustery
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So like Winnie the Pooh, or not like?
Winnie the Pooh.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
I watched lots of Winnie the Pooh with my kids when they were little.
I like that. I love Tigger. I think everybody likes Tigger.
Yeah.
There's something about Eeyore that I always like. You know, I'd hang out with Eeyore. He could.
Eeyore's authentic. He's honest.
Yeah, he really is.
He's not like putting on a front or a
No.
face. You know, he is what he is and
Absolutely.
owns it.
Yeah. Well put, Tara. Absolutely. I think that's what the reasons why I've always enjoyed his characters. Like, yeah, you just you get what you get with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like that about him. So if you hear any of like the wind, and we've had a couple crows up here, we're at the very, very tippy top. We're up here where, you know, Jay and I have been doing our interviews for our Facebook show. So I'm on the commode, on a nice seat there. So that's where we're at, kind of give you a little bit of setting. So starting off, you know, this kind of a two-part question here. Like, tell me about your experience with yoga and how it began.
Yeah. So after my first child was born, I knew I needed to do something for stress relief. Looking back now, I really think I probably had some postpartum depression going on, but I don't think that like I identified it as that then. And I think for some people, like, you know, motherhood is seamless and easy, and I'm so fiercely independent, you know, I struggled with it a lot, especially the demands of an infant. So I knew that I needed to do something. And I was an avid rock climber at the time, and there was this big old banner in the rock climbing gym, which was Vicki Russell Bell Yoga. And I probably looked at that banner for weeks before, you know, I was like, you know, I think maybe I want to try some yoga, you know. And I just started with like videos. And then Vicki actually was able to come to my house in a very affordable manner because she was teaching another class very close to where I was at. And so I started doing weekly yoga with her, and I think, like, you know, like as anyone who gets into yoga, it's like the rest is history, right? You see the benefits, you see the changes, and so that's how it kind of started. And then it probably was at least 9 months before I actually went to an in-person class, which is entirely different than a video or a private. And, you know, that's when things really changed as well.
Do you think that because what really changed for you was just the energy of a room and how that room and that energy holds a space?
Yeah.
That's what really was affecting for you?
Yes, yes, the energy of a class and all of the people there, it's just, it's very different than in a private. And I think people that in classes, like, I think they experience that. Like, sometimes at the end of my classes, I will do like a little visualization where you take your intentions and you spread them out, you know, outside of the room, and you know, people feel that, they feel that energy. So yeah, it's just different when there's a bunch of people in a class practicing yoga versus a private.
Absolutely. So I mean, when, you know, the little prompt of like, basically, what were you, I'm sorry, your words were, I don't want to mess them up, they're so well said, of like, basically taking in an intention and kind of, you said scatter them?
Yeah, well, yeah, like, you just, sometimes I'll say take the benefits that you got from your practice today and send it out to somebody. Or sometimes when like the world feels tumultuous, that I'll do a visualization where we collectively will bring our energies and good intentions together and feel them fill up the room, and then feel them spread outside of the boundaries of the room and spread over
That's great.
Waynesville or
I love
wherever,
it. Yeah.
and eventually like spread over the world like the paint can, the Sherwin
Yeah.
Williams paint can.
Oh, great
Something like that.
visual. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and you can feel that, and students have said, I felt that, you know.
Well, I'm constantly kind of thinking about this in this idea of like the saying of like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, like because people stop, right? They don't put that foot in front of the other and continue it, right?
Yeah.
So in a good yoga class like that, I think when it's a good yoga class is when your intentions are really focused, and it's because you have an hour, you can complete it.
Yeah.
Right? And then
Right.
you've already shown up, you've done that, so now you're carrying that with you, And so I think a lot about that idea of intent. Like, what's your intent in showing up? And I've even been using the word in practice like ritual.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there is that thing of like making it more powerful in that sense of like what we go through and put ourselves through the motions. I think ritual kind of sometimes can have a little bit like a spooky connotation to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but routine.
Routine, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like with routine, it's almost like, routine is like, I gotta go get my oil changed. You know what I mean? Or I gotta get up, my routine is have my coffee and all that type of stuff. So when you put a little bit of an emotional and, dare I say, spiritual aspect to that, of the routine, the ritual of, and so there's that intent.
Yeah.
So I love that outro of like, don't forget that like your class just doesn't necessarily end when the hour's up.
Yes.
Like it's a continuation.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Absolutely.
That's really good stuff. I like that. So you were rock climbing, and where it's kind of taken you. I mean, you're here.
Yeah.
And you're teaching classes, and I've taken a handful of your classes, and the last one I took was the fascial psoas.
Restorative.
The psoas. That thing, I know it's helped me, and especially has helped Anne Marie because she's at the computer all the time. So that psoas, right there, just I mean, you want to talk about that thing? I mean, that learning about the fascial tissue and how much that's kind of changed your life in that way?
Yeah. So that's kind of become, I absolutely love teaching flow. I love teaching flow, but like the fascial release kind of became my niche, and that came out of like my own personal experiences with having myofascial release. I actually was starting to have like what I self-diagnosed as like some SI joint instability. And it happened from a trip that I took to the beach, and it was very warm, and I was very deep in yoga poses when I was there. And I think I got too deep, and then I came back, or just something I was doing wasn't strengthening those joints in an appropriate way, but was overstretching them without strengthening them, is probably what was going on.
Okay.
But in any case, I was starting to have some like pretty significant pain in my lower lumbar sacral area, and specifically with twisting motions. And one time I was just leaning down to like pick up a package, and was like doubled over in pain, with tears in my eyes, like my husband being like, "Are you okay?" And me saying, "Just give me a moment, give me a couple minutes, and it'll be okay."
Yeah.
And I had that happen a couple times other than that too. One was at work at the hospital, and I just remember the patient's family looking at me like, "Are you all right?" Same thing, like, give me a moment. So a friend of mine who's a retired physician, I knew that she used myofascial release in, some of her like integrative, progressive care. Like, so I out of desperation one day was like, "Can you help me?" So I went there, I had a session. It was like phenomenal in how just that one session helped me. And I think I went a second time, and then that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I've never had any issue with it since.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And through that, then I got a connection with a myofascial release therapist who is also a yoga teacher, and combined the two together as a means of providing self-care for her clients. So I went and took a weekend like workshop with her, and it also was amazing. Like I came back from that weekend and not having practiced traditional yoga, just doing like the myofascial release stuff, I was like so much deeper in my poses.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, this stuff is pretty cool. The fascial system is fascinating, and so that's kind of where I ended up.
That's great. Well, I mean, everyone who takes your class loves it. I know that you've got a lot of good, consistent regulars on that because of how it's helping. I mean, I know, again, just speaking from my experience, whenever I get that kind of complication there, because usually it's, I thought it was like, just that lower back issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That whole thing. I was like, oh, it's just my lower back.
So we just opened the door.
Yeah. And really it's the psoas. And so when I work on that stuff and do that kind of, all the little steps that you shared with us, I mean, it's helped me. And I know with Anne Marie, speaking on her behalf, anytime it starts to flare up, she can heal herself,
Oh,
so that's awesome that you
good.
give tools out like that.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. That's a gift that keeps on giving, as they
Yeah.
say.
And that
Very
stuff
cool.
makes me feel so good when I hear that, like somebody is able to, I mean, that's what I talk a lot in my classes about. We do yoga in order to begin to tune into your body in part, to be able to understand what are your holding patterns, where do you keep your tension, because if you can't feel that, you can't ever then address it. You're
Yeah.
just in disease, you just
Yeah.
don't feel good,
Oh,
and
wow.
you don't know why.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes me really smile that like she now is like, okay, yeah, this is really bothering me, and she knows what to do to
Yeah,
help
she's
it.
empowered. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I love that use of the word of this idea of when you don't pay attention to yourself and you're not going inward and searching out and being aware and practicing that mindfulness, that it puts you in a degree of disease.
Yeah.
What a trip. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often, this is a big question, but I think it's worthwhile talking about, is like, why do you think we're running from ourselves in that way? Or where we're just in that avoidance. I mean, I know we've got cell phones, we've got all our life happening,
Yeah.
but the moment you start really going inward and you start paying attention, right? I mean, that's when you start
Yeah.
curing your own disease, so to speak, right?
I think there's so many layers to that question. I mean, I think it's like,
Yeah.
what is the problem with our modern lives in general? And
It's a big
if I
ask,
could
yeah.
identify one thing, I feel like we're disconnected from the natural world.
Yeah.
And that's an important part of me also, is to connect with the natural world, because once you can get in tune with the rhythms of the seasons, get in tune with the energy of the trees and the things around you, then you're better able to feel stuff in your own body, I think.
Okay.
I think that for one, I think people are just so busy just trying to do what they think they're supposed to
Survive,
do,
right? Yeah.
But a lot of what we think we are supposed to do, we don't need to do, and so if you can get rid of all that extra stuff and just come back to yourself, or focus on what's important. I don't know. I feel like since I moved here, my life is so much simpler. Like I focus on more simple things.
Yeah.
Like going out and breathing and looking at the moon, or just connecting with nature, which I guess that's why I brought the two of those together. In response to your question, is the more grounded I am, the more I'm able to feel in my body, and the less I worry about the house being clean, or shopping, having the perfect chair, or whatever. All of these things that we put on ourselves that we don't really need to be stressed about. It's like, what is really important? Your relationships, your health.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm not really answering.
No,
that very
no,
well.
no. I think you're in the ballpark.
Because it is so multi-layered.
It is. Well,
but I think a lot of it is that people are just too busy. They're too busy focusing on maybe things they don't need to do. Your kid doesn't need to be involved in 4 sports. Do they really need to be involved in 4 sports? No.
Yeah. I'm with
that
you.
type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of one of the sayings is like scooping coal onto your lap. You
Oh, I
what
don't know that saying, right?
Like where you
But it sounds unpleasant.
it's very unpleasant where you're kind of recreating your own chaos in ways. You know, when the proverbial emotional dust starts to settle, so often it's like it's almost kind of like a pack rat mentality, but emotionally, where it's like once things start to kind of chill out, it's like, well, I've got to create some more chaos so that the sameness is here
Yeah.
moving forward,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You know, so when maybe my definition of going to nature is realizing that there's an ebb and flow to it all, and I just gotta like sit in it and just feel
Yes.
what's happening,
Yes.
right? And realize that I mean, even within entropy, and chaos is gonna come, chaos is gonna go, things are gonna change, and just kind of sitting into that. I mean, you watch any tree and you learn about entropy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to put a little bow on what you're saying, but it is a big topic and it's worthwhile conversation.
Yeah, yes. Why
Yeah.
do we not feel what we feel in our body?
Yeah.
I also think that which is a whole other thing, that like the habits, the holding patterns, the tension just becomes so much integrated into your being that's your norm.
Yeah.
But that's not your norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when I get up in the morning, sometimes when I get up in the morning and I go to meditate, I'll just feel my shoulders like come down and come down and come down. And then, I have enough awareness now to be like, oh wow, why was I sleeping like this? Part of it's just physical positioning, but part of it is, what was I worrying about in my sleep overnight that my shoulders were up in my ears?
Yeah.
And I had to come to my mat and sit in quiet to feel it.
Yeah.
To feel them released, to feel them come back home versus wherever they're living,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's that weird thing of, because you don't really have to fight bears anymore. You know what I mean? Like because now, to my best philosophy and understanding of this, of the fight or flight or stay and fawn and all that type of stuff is really coming from my humble opinion of that animalistic past, and we're still trying to figure out ways to conform to what we've created.
Yeah.
As a world and society.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good thing to bring up, because I talk about that too, is that we constantly are living in a fight or flight system. Our adrenal glands are constantly producing these hormones that are making our whole bodies be in this fight or flight. And it's because we've come to identify all of these things in our life as life or death. The person that cut you off in traffic, or you have to be at this appointment at this exact time.
Right.
And your body is not sensing the difference between that bear wants to eat me and these simple things in our lives.
Yeah, I missed Chuck's phone call.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That type of thing. Oh my gosh, I gotta return it. Chuck's gonna be angry and all that type of stuff.
Right.
Really, yeah.
And then we don't come back to that place of quiet, the rest and digest. We don't come back to that. We stay in the fight or flight.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome that you're bringing that.
We've talked about so many different things here with that question, because it, like I said, it is very multi-layered.
Yeah. I warned you, but I can't help but go to the deep end. That's just where I like to swim all the time, because I personally, what else is there? I mean, I don't know, in my humble opinion, I don't know what else there is in life if not dealing with those matters before it's time for us to go. You know what I mean? I don't know what else there is, So that's awesome that you're bringing that into your class and being bold, and I think deeply caring enough to bring people's attention to that aspect of life, and like, hey, we're not being chased by bears. We're, we need what was the phrase that you used, to relax and digest.
Rest and digest.
Rest and digest. That's even but absolutely. I like that. So
two different nervous systems.
Right.
There's the fight and flight nervous system, and then there's the rest and digest. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's even like cool thing. I was talking with somebody, or I read, I can't remember, but just this idea of like you could kind of like curse the light bulb, and how that like really changed the rest aspect for people.
Oh.
Because all of a sudden the farmer could stay up later and do more work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Once again, disconnecting from the natural rhythms.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, so I find that stuff like that really interesting. It's like,
Yeah.
what is that? So you mean that we have to monitor ourselves? We have to be aware of all those things, and not just because we can keep on going.
Yeah. You do
we
have to
shouldn't.
monitor yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be like, no electronics for 2 hours before I'm
Exactly.
going to go to bed.
Exactly.
Lights out are at 10 p.m.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Even
you
though I
do.
got cookies in the cabinet, doesn't mean I have to eat them all, right?
Right.
Yeah. No. But I mean, it's just we're so lucky in the sense that we don't have to go and pick berries anymore. It's so readily available. You know, things are just
Yeah.
so. I mean, at least in the United States,
Right.
where we're at. I mean, where I've grown up, I've been very privileged in that sense. But how that's kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I was
You
going to
know?
say, is that lucky?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't know where your food came from, you don't appreciate it, you
Yeah.
know, we don't eat well because we're not, you know, making choices about our food for nutrition,
Yeah.
you know, it's just convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Convenience. Yeah.
Convenience or pleasure.
Oh my gosh. So we can talk about that stuff and
Yeah.
let's get back into it. But so we've talked about where it's taken you and how it's impacted your life. I mean, do you have any favorite styles of yoga or classes that you really dig? I mean, you kind of said you like the vinyasa, you like the flows, and
Yeah, like if I had a favorite, you know, I mean, obviously I do the myofascial release stuff myself at home with all of my toys all the time. But like I like a flow, what we call here a flow in yen. In Ohio we would have just called it something different. But
Yeah.
I like to have like, you know, some standing poses, some flow to it, some mindful alignment while I'm in those poses, and then settle down on the floor for like some yummy holds, you know, with some forward bends or hip openers or stuff like that. So yeah, like if I'm going to go to a class that is not mine, like that's probably what I'm looking for.
gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
I like that.
Like I actually was fortunate enough to have like a lot of different teachers in my background that learned from different styles. So like I never was like purely Iyengar or Anusara or Ashtanga or anything. Like I had teachers that were, you know, very much those styles, and so I think I've integrated all that into my own practice.
I think that's great. Again, in my humble opinion, I think when you find yourself in any type of rigidity, you're cruising for a bruising. You know, you're just going in that route to where like you said, well,
It's
it's got to
very
be this
yogic,
way.
right?
It is like it should be that ease of flow and like you know to kind of be kind of cherry pick, you know, just come as you are and. But I mean, as far as like the cheerleading stuff, I mean, I still don't know if, you know, people in football make a basket or what. I don't know. I'm joking, of course, but you know, it's just like sports and I just have never really gotten along. I don't know. There's something the little bits of sports I tried to do. It's like, what's the point? I got other stuff, you know, I want to do. Where's the creek? So I'm with you. I mean, do you know what kind of drew you to cheerleading in the first place?
Oh gosh. I think when I was younger I actually did like the spotlight on me, you know. And I guess it was just what you did. Like I think back to like when I was in elementary school and I started, I mean, I'm not even sure there was a women's basketball team, to tell you the truth. I mean, you know, the boys did their sports, and girls, if you wanted to do something, you got into gymnastics or cheerleading. So that's probably how it started, honestly.
There you go. So I mean, I went into it and guessed that the reason I wanted to go into cheerleading is because that physical, probably, you know, because a lot of the jumping and you know, some of the
it's very athletic. I mean, it is very athletic.
Yeah, I would imagine at your stature you were a flyer, right?
Yeah. Always
so
at the top. We didn't do like the things like basket catches and stuff. That started after my time. But we would build pyramids.
Yeah.
And I always had to be the one climbing to the very top of the pyramid.
I gotcha. You know, I wrestled for a bit in high school, and
I can see that for sure too.
I got beat up a little bit more in cheerleading than wrestling because, you know, tossing, and if you got someone who wasn't used to it, you get an elbow, from like, 10 feet in the air,
yeah,
and
yeah.
scratches and all
Oh,
that type of
yeah.
stuff. It was like,
I didn't really think about
I
that,
hated it. Yeah, I got beat up quite a bit. I mean, elbows being thrown, getting kicked in the face, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I can
you know.
totally see that.
Yeah, I did. I got kicked out for smoking cigarettes. So there you go. There's that. It's like, you gotta quit smoking, or you gotta stop cheerleading. I was like, nope.
Yep, I'm out then.
I'm out. See you later. You got a light?
Oh gosh. Jake, the smoking
Yeah,
cheerleader.
oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, is there anything else that you'd want to like throw out there and put out to the worldwide interweb before we get off of our interview? I mean,
Just that yoga's good stuff and everybody should be doing it.
I
Like
agree.
yoga changes people's lives. It
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah.
And it's also multi-layered. The more you practice, the deeper your experience will be. Come in once a week, that's one thing, but when you up your practice to daily, whether you're coming to a class daily or whether you're having a daily practice at home, or even just going several times a week, it really deepens things quickly for you. It moves you from the physical, asana to the deeper levels of yoga, I think.
I would agree. I think that's very important to downshift and at least, give yourself an hour to yourself. Like, again, coming back around full circle of that idea of intent. This is
Yeah.
for me, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And do it without any type of. I experienced shame for giving myself time because I
Oh.
felt like at the
Yeah.
very, very beginning,
Yeah.
I'm like, really, I should be doing something else. So this has got to be going on, but. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a shame there for me when I originally started yoga of like just giving myself an hour to really reflect.
And I think I'll piggyback onto
Please.
that because I don't want people to have the idea that I have to do an hour of yoga every day.
Right on.
It's like it just needs to be every day. It can be 10 or 15 minutes.
Mhm.
I mean, I know I spoke with Amber Clyde recently. The two of us we got together for coffee, and I was saying what my morning yoga routine is, which is anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour, but it is every day.
Mhm.
And that's the important part, is every day.
I would agree with that
And
intent.
it doesn't have to be a lot.
Yeah. Like for me personally, I'll do a couple of sun salutations. That's my thing. Just get up, just that up and down, go through
Yeah.
with that intent, that breath.
Yeah.
Kind of do a little bit of the Tai Chi movements in there,
Yeah.
grab some clouds and all that
Nice.
type of stuff, and then,
Yeah.
okay, I'm done, give me my coffee, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have a morning routine.
Yeah,
Going
yeah.
back to the circle of the word routine
Yeah.
that I go through. And it's about 15 minutes of meditation and then probably about 15 minutes of yoga. It's always my bare minimum to do 3 sun salutations. But then sometimes I get drawn into other stuff that my body needs that day.
Right.
And I'll practice longer. And,
That's cool.
and it's not a chore.
Yeah.
And then some days it's a chore to just do 3 sun salutations,
Mhm.
and so that's my bare minimum. That's what I do and I move on.
Good. I appreciate you sharing that part because I think that's also the grace that comes that you eventually start to practice with yourself because of practicing yoga is that it is what it's going to be, but I still did it.
Yeah, you got to
You know?
show up on your mat.
Exactly. And then you show up in all those other parts of your life. It's a really cool kind of like ripple effect that starts to happen, But with all that being said, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. I know I didn't look at you all much. I guess I should have. I just looked at Jake.
That's okay, buddy. Not an issue. So, we'll just call that way. Thank you.
Okay.